All right, everybody, day three. Welcome back to another Getting the Most Out of Tidepool with me, your community manager, Christopher Snider. Welcome back to the fun. 2 days ago, we looked at creating your account, connecting your account with your provider, attempting to upload your data. Yesterday, we walked through the basics and sort of entry-level understanding of Tidepool Web and what it looks like and what your data can look like there, understanding what some of the views are. Today, we're going to take a look at my data, and I'm going to walk you through some of the things that I look at for me and my diabetes, and I'm going to offer you a couple of tips and tricks for some things that you can do when it comes to interacting and interpreting your own Tidepool data. As always, if you have questions, the Q&A button at the bottom here will get you a question to me, and we can talk and have a good time. And if you have any questions down the road, support@tidepool.org is the email address that you should be contacting with any questions about this, anything else you've seen, all our archived webinars, or anything else about your Tidepool experience. One last thing before we get to my data. There's a phrase that is often passed around. It goes something to the effect of your diabetes may vary. This is just a reminder. We're going to look at my data. I've had some good days. I've had some not so good days. Everybody's diabetes is unique. How you manage it is unique. We're going to be respectful of each other. And I'm in a decent place mentally with my diabetes right now. But in terms of taking a look at this stuff, if you see some good days, don't take that as an indictment on you or your kid or your patients or anything like that. I have some good days. I have some not so good days. It's diabetes is a fickle thing, and we're going to get through all this together. All right. So again, today we're talking about what I look at with my own data. Right. So this is me. I actually uploaded my data this morning, and I am using a T-Slim X2 running Control IQ. It is pretty cool. They didn't pay me to say anything like that, but I'm a big fan of the technology. It does a lot for me right now with the automation in terms of I get to focus on my work and my life without having to think about diabetes. They can probably clip that if they want for their own promotion. But for me, the things that I look at whenever I upload my data and I'm taking a look at what I see, again, my time and range stats on the right are the first thing that I'm always going to be looking at. This big green bar here, my personal goal is to always be above 70% time in range over the course of whatever reporting period I'm looking at. And when it comes to any conversations I have with my my endo or my CDE, it always starts with this time and range data over here. Next is the GMI. I don't pay a lot of attention to GMI personally because I'm more focused on time and range, but I do know that this is a good indication of how things have gone over the past 90 days given my CGM data as it is. One thing you'll notice here, because I'm using Control IQ, I'm not actually using my blood glucose meter because all of my CGM values are just automatically, one, coming off of the pump, but two, they're also automatically being input into my bolus calculator whenever I'm taking a correction or mealtime bolus. So this entire section is actually empty for me right now. And to your question, Paul, can I collapse the BG section? Currently, no. There are some improvements we have to make to Tidepool Web, including the basic section, to improve, one, how we're displaying data around Control IQ, and then two, to add a little more customization where it is appropriate to better match your specific needs. So when it comes to the data display, the sort of components are fixed, and then the data that goes into it obviously is your own data here. For me, again, running Control IQ, I am keen to have a nice 50-50 basal bolus breakdown. So 51% basal insulin, 49% bolus delivery over the past almost 3 weeks. That's solid for me. That means that one, I believe my settings are in a good place. And two, the boluses, I'm not doing too many correction boluses to try and balance things out. That at least to the effect that they are overcompensating for a lack of basal delivery for me. Again, this is me and my diabetes. When it comes to looking at the bolus section, because Control IQ will give me automatic boluses for corrections for highs, you can actually see right here, I have an average of 8 boluses per day, but the actual times I'm using the bolus calculators whenever I'm actually entering carbs into my insulin pump for a meal is only about 40% of the time. So 57 of these boluses over the course of these 3 weeks out of a total of 144 include the calculator. So the other 60% of boluses that are taking place right now are automatic, which is an interesting data point for me, but it isn't necessarily, I don't know what to do with that information right now, but it is something that I'm paying attention to see how often I'm letting the system take over for me and my diabetes management. Regarding the blood glucose reading section up here, Michael, for calibrations, Dexcom calibrations don't show up here. We're talking about readings from your blood glucose meter or manual readings that you're putting into your insulin pump. So if I were on basal IQ or a different insulin pump that was registering blood glucose values, they would show up in this section up here as a manual reading. and the readings off of my meter would show up whenever I enable the meter filter here. Again, my data isn't necessarily a great sort of example for how that filter would work. But if it's something you do need to see, just let me know. We can contact me later. Again, support@tidepool.org, and I can show you what that looks like there. Next, coming down here in the basics section, the infusion site changes. I try and change my infusion site every 3 days, but I am human. As you can see, here is a 4-day site change. Here's another 4-day over here. I don't go more than a full 4 days. As a general, with my own diabetes management, I noticed that anything past 4 days in my insulin absorption just goes to bunk. So I try and change it at 3 days, or close to that 3-day alert for me. But sometimes I will run my infusion sites long because that's just sort of my life. When it comes to the basal section, there's a lot of information here that is kind of difficult to decipher. You can see how often Control IQ is working, because there are over 2,000 temporary basal events that took place over the past almost 3 weeks. Again, that's a data point that is fascinating, but there's not a lot I can really do with that because it's an automated system that's supposed to be doing that. But if anything, that just indicates that the system is working for me, which is fascinating, but again, nothing for me to really act upon here. After I'm done reviewing things in the basics view, I go to the trends view. And I've been focusing on my overnights and my pre-bedtime rituals. As you can see over the past 2 weeks, my median, the colored values here between midnight and 6 a.m., and actually really 7 a.m., are pretty great right now. Great. They are in a really good place right now for what I'm looking to accomplish with my diabetes. So I see those green dots as my median. I see very little variance here with 50% of my CGM readings. So most of my CGM readings are in a really tight range right here, which to me says that I'm doing something right and the system is working, but also I'm setting myself up for success whenever I'm waking up in the morning and I'm more often than not within my target ranges. And that means that there's less variability likely for me over the course of the rest of the day, just because I'm starting off in a good place, again, for me and my diabetes. So when I see my overnights that are doing well, the next thing I need to do is identify Dexcom is actually calling me right now. That's really awkward. I think they know. The next thing I want to look at is where do I have a lot of, where's the next trend that I can focus on? And like I said, for me, this 9 p.m. to midnight range is actually what my current focus is right now. And when I include all of my CGM readings by including these checkboxes here, over the past 2 weeks, I see a consistent rise starting at around 9 o'clock. So to me, that indicates that I'm doing a really bad job of my carb counting around my meals, because I'm not bolusing effectively for that. I'm pretty sure we're going to look into the daily view in a second, and we're going to see that I have a lot of automatic corrections that take place around this time period because the system is working hard to account for the part where I do a lousy job at carb counting. Again, I'm human. It happens. When it comes to what I'm ultimately looking at here, I try not to focus on the bad as much or the not as good as much. I see all these data points as opportunities for improvement when I'm ready to actually focus in on making a change on my diabetes. Michael, I see another question in here. Thank you, Michael. Are the green squares the averages? Yes, so they are actually the median here. When I disable all these other readings here, we start by looking at just the median values over a half-hour time block within the different range for the time period we're looking at. So right now we're looking at 2 weeks of data. If we change to 4 weeks of data, then these should actually change. There we go. So you can see over the past 4 weeks, you can see again where my median values are, and we can add in 50%, 80%, and 100% of my CGM readings to see where all of my CGM data is showing up over the course of this 24-hour period. Currently, we do not display the actual value of the median within the trends view. It is something that we do know about in terms of a feature request from the community. Thank you for that. But that's something just to keep in mind as you're moving forward. One other fun thing you can actually do here is hover over any given section here, and you can see the CGM lines that contribute to a given data block within the trends view. For me, at this point, I've been living with this thing long enough that I know that if I am high overnight, it's likely going to be a roller coaster for the rest of the day. Here we have data to show that if I'm within this range of 245 to 312 in the middle of the night, it's going to be a pretty aggressive sort of journey back down to in range, but it's also likely that it's going to result in a bit of a bumpy ride for the rest of the day for me. And again, you can apply this for any other section that you see within the trends view to say, all right, if this is where I am, what has happened before, what is happening after, what can I use in terms of understanding this information to potentially make changes to my diabetes management here. One other question from Magnus. Hi, Magnus. Thank you. I'm going to hop over to the daily view real quick. I love Tidepool to use both personal, I use it as a person with diabetes and as a clinician for those who use DIY Loop and Android APS. It's very exciting. There are a few things that I would love to have, and that's the number of boluses, and is also asking for the possibility to add health from health apps, or add health data from health apps. So got a couple of things in there. In terms of the number of boluses, those are actually identified in the basics view, Magnus. Here, there's a whole bolus section. And again, this is all data coming off of an insulin pump or uploaded from Apple Health. So you can see the average number of boluses per day. You can hover over each one of these days to see how many are taking place. And again, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of these are actually automatic boluses because of the Control IQ system that's working for me. In terms of uploading data from Apple Health, as long as you have an app that is writing blood glucose, carb, or insulin data into Apple Health, Tidepool Mobile on iOS can upload that data into a Tidepool account. So Dexcom Mobile, OneDrop, MySugar, Companion Medicals, InPen, all those applications are storing that blood glucose, carb, or insulin data in Apple Health. And as a result, we can upload that data from those iPhones into a Tidepool account. Thank you for your question, Magnus. Lastly, when it comes to the daily view here, I'm going to show you a couple of things. I've been asked by my endo to pay close attention to when I'm walking my dog, who's adorable. His name is Miles Davis. When I'm walking the dog and when I'm actually using the exercise activity function on my t:slim pump. For the Control IQ, you can set the exercise activity. It will raise your blood glucose target. It is a manual option, so you have to actually go into the t:slim interface, turn on exercise activity, and then turn it off. And the thing that I need to do, or that I've been asked to do, is pay close attention to the dog walks as it relates to my blood glucose, but also when I'm enabling and disabling the exercise activity. So I'm using Tidepool Mobile on my phone to document all those dog walks and actually document the timestamps of when I am enabling and disabling the exercise activity. And what we're going to do here is go back over the past couple of days and see how well I've been doing at all of these things, right? So let's start with, today's Thursday. So we'll start on May 13th from last week. Here we have a note here. This is me walking the dog. There's a 1 mile loop in our neighborhood. So this is me walking the dog. Took about 20 minutes for 1.04 miles. And then we have a note prior to that that says Control IQ exercise activity start. And we have a note after that that says Control IQ exercise activity stop. Again, these are notes that I've made using Tidepool Mobile on my phone. And here I actually did a decent job of tracking the before, the during, and the after. Let's look ahead to the next day. Before, during, and after. I'm feeling really good about this. I haven't looked at my data yet, so I'm sort of joining this journey together. Friday, May 15th, looks like I didn't walk the dog, and as a result, didn't need exercise activity, but I also did have a lovely extended high here. Not sure what happened there. But again, these things happen. It is a bit of a bummer. This to me looks like a restart of a new CGM insert, but I need to document that as well. Again, all these sort of questions where I say, I think, imagine those actually being times when I take the moment to document those events in Tidepool Mobile. That way I don't have to try and remember what happened a week ago, but I have the notes to actually remind us of what's going on, to remind me of what happened in the moment there. Here on Saturday the 16th, I have a dog walk, but as you can see, there's no exercise activity before and after there. So that's a little bit of a bummer on me in terms of remembering to actually engage with that activity setting there. On Sunday, another dog walk. Ooh, this was a nice 2 laps around the neighborhood, 45 minutes, but again, no exercise activity before and after. And as you can see, before, during, and after, and one more before, during, and after. So for the past week and a half, I've done a decent job of tracking both the dog walks, walking the dog, and logging and using the exercise activity function there. That's the beginning of the conversation that I'd be having with my endocrinologist about, 1, tracking these actions appropriately, and then 2, understanding what's happening during these moments. So when I see this dog walk here, this dog walk timestamp is 7:58 p.m. and you can see I was already pretty low before I started that walk. How big of a dip did I go down? When it comes to, come on back here. When it comes to after the fact, you can see I disabled the exercise activity setting at around 9 o'clock. So we can go back in. Oh, come on now. Boom, boom, boom. There we go. We come back in around 9 o'clock, and you can see I had a pretty strong rise, which to me indicates that I probably had a pretty lovely correction snack that was probably a bit too much. And actually, you can see where I bolus forward here with these 36 carbs. 36 grams per carb. But again, we have the data around all these different events to sort of indicate, to tell a more clear story about what's going on here, and use that to form, to sort of build the conversation with your endocrinologist or CDE, and then build a plan of action around what to do. So it's very likely that my endo is going to say, hey, you should think about enabling exercise activity at least 30 minutes before your next dog walk. And again, there'll be data there'll be data here to indicate whether or not I'm actually successfully accomplishing those objectives in the future when I'm looking at this sort of stuff. A couple of questions that have come in, one from Paul, one from Magnus. Actually, they're both around the exact same thing. Y'all on a good wavelength. Can you download workouts from Apple Health? So yes, you can actually upload workout data from Apple Health into your Tidepool account. However, we're not yet visualizing it, which is a whole other thing. So if you have that data in there and you're uploading it, great. In terms of visualizing it, it's something we're going to get to at some point. I don't know when, but it's something that we do have on our roadmap in terms of increasing the amount of information you have available to you within Tidepool Web. That was a really quick run through, but I wanted to give you an example of how the note feature in particular with Tidepool can help you add context to your data and use that as a foundation to begin a conversation either with yourself, with your care team, with your providers, with whoever, around actions that you want to take, actions that you can take, actions that you should be taking to improve your diabetes management. It's a real quick run through, but I think, again, the takeaway I hope you have here is that, let me actually take this away real quick. The takeaway I hope that you have is using the data to inform these conversations, right? So if you have an objective around your dinner time habits, use Tidepool Mobile to document precisely what you're eating and actually what you're bolusing for. And then when you go back 2 weeks later to review everything, you have those notes to actually have a more informed conversation with whoever you want around all this stuff. When it comes to exercise or anything else around your diabetes, Tidepool Mobile can be a way for you to help document all that stuff and use that as a way to go back and review all your data. And that's sort of where we are right now. One last question in from Mary. Hi, Mary. Thank you. Is there any way to aggregate notes and analyze them? Not currently. In terms of data export, the notes should be included in our upcoming data export feature. But in terms of using the notes as like a foundation to do a more focused data analysis, that's something that is not yet available right now. And that's actually a really interesting concept that I'm going to share with our data science team and our support team to document that feature request. It's a really good idea. Don't have anything for you just right now. So thank you for that one, Mary. Another question from Paul. Can I use Siri to log events into Tidepool? My guess is maybe if you're able to build your own Siri shortcut. However, my phone is a Pixel 3. I don't use an iPhone, so I actually don't know what Siri can and can't do. And you can send all the Apple enthusiasts after me. But if you're able to create custom shortcuts, I'm pretty sure you might be able to use Siri to automatically create a note within Tidepool. How that would actually happen, I'm not sure. You can send a note to support@tidepool.org and see if any of the support team have an idea on something like that, how that could be possible. But unfortunately, I am not the best person to ask about something like that. Last question in then from Rhonda. My info says the target is 120, even though control IQ is 110. So you actually, we can bring this one back. One question, Rhonda. Thank you for that. You actually have the ability to change your blood glucose targets within Tidepool. So if you're low target, depending on who you are and what you need to accomplish, you can actually change your low thresholds and your high thresholds for what Tidepool is displaying as in terms of in range to whatever you want it to be. Mine is currently set to 70 and 180, but if your targets are a little bit different, if you want to be more aggressive about it, if you want to be a little more relaxed about it, then you can change those targets within your personal Tidepool account to better reflect what you're looking to accomplish with your diabetes management. In terms of what else you've got going on, again, that's up to you, but Tidepool can help support that as best as we can. And if we're not supporting it, please let us know where we can do better. Again, send an email to support@tidepool.org, and we will get back to you. We're going to call that a webinar. I feel like it's been a good 3 days. I'd love for you to let me know how you feel about the past 3 days of this adventure. If you're watching this live, thank you. If you're watching the archives, thank you. Send an email to support@tidepool.org. Let us know how we're doing. Let us know what we can do better. Let us know what else we can do to improve how we're communicating to you, how we're helping you with your diabetes journey as best as we can with Tidepool. That's been it for this mini webinar series on getting the most out of Tidepool. Hopefully you had fun. Hopefully you learned something. As your community manager, Christopher Snider, hope you all have a great rest of the day, great rest of the week. Take care.